I am really delighted that Betsy and John and Aaron were here. They started the day. But I want to emphasize a theme that the Republicans find a little tricky and that I think the Romney people were exactly right to launch the week with. If you'll notice, we have it again and again up at the top. We can do better. We're not going to offer people less of a Medicare program. We're going to offer them a better, more modern, more effective program. We're not going to offer people less education. We're going to find ways to make education more effective, and we're going to find ways to help people get better jobs. So we're not going to try to spread the pain. We're going to try to actually create opportunities. The person who I think did the largest impact of this and taught me and many others was Jack Kemp. And I'm going to introduce his son Jimmy, who's the head of the Jack Kemp Foundation, in a minute or two. But I want to frame what we're trying to say today. First of all, let's talk about better and worse. This particular chart, which is a little complicated, and all of this will be available at newtuniversity.com for you and your friends. And I will repeat, any of you who have not yet either tweeted or Facebooked or emailed your friends to let them know they can go there. This will be up from now to the election. This chart's real simple. Every recession since World War II and the rate of recovery is on that chart. There is one outlier. That is, there's one recession so bad that it stands apart from every other event. So whether you're talking about President Truman, President Eisenhower, President Kennedy, President Johnson, President Nixon, President Ford, President Carter, President Reagan, President Bush, President Clinton, President Bush. They're all the other lines that are up there. Now you'll notice this is very simple to go back home and tell your friends. You can draw this in a graph. You can just take a piece of paper and say, here is a generalization of everybody else since World War II. And here is this flat line down below, which is the Obama slump. You know, some people write about there's a new normal. Baloney. There's an Obama normal. The Obama normal is a disaster. And there's an answer to it. Fire Obama. You know, when Calista and I did our movie, Ronald Reagan, Rendezvous with Destiny, we have a clip of Carter. And Carter's explaining, you know, we're in a world now that's different, and we're just going to have to give up all these big expectations, and malaise may be our future. He doesn't actually technically use the word malaise, but it was called the malaise speech by the news media. And the country looked at it and said, let me get this straight. We have a president who can't figure it out. So he's blaming the rest of us. And Ronald Reagan had a great line. He said, you know, when your brother-in-law is unemployed, it's called a recession. When you're unemployed, it's called a depression. When Jimmy Carter's unemployed, it's called a recovery. So here's my prediction. You look at how totally different the Obama collapse is. And this is one of the things that's very hard to get the elite media to cover. This is a policy problem. This is a guy who thought the answer to having a fire was to put gasoline on it. And the way you solve this, I predict to you, the recovery begins late on election night when people realize Obama's gone and small businesses start improving. So our first theme to the country is real simple. We can do better. If you think this is the best America can do, dramatic increase in children in poverty, dramatic increase in unemployed teenagers, dramatic increase in the federal debt, then that's the right place to be. But in the late 70s, when we were trapped in the Carter malaise, and half the Republicans ran around with green eye shades and said, oh, you know, it'll be really painful and you'll hate it, but when I amputate your leg, you'll feel grateful. One person came along and changed the psychology of the party, and it was not Ronald Reagan. It was Jack Kemp. Beginning in the early 70s, it was captured perfectly. For those of you who really want to study politics, there are two Wall Street Journal essays by Irving Kristol, one called The Stupid Party and the other called The Future of the Republican Party, written in 1976, in which Kristol outlined the problem of modern conservatism. And he said, you know, they've trapped us into this game where the Democrats play Santa Claus and we play bill collector. So the Democrats wander through, give away gifts, and then it's our job to run by and take all your money. And we wonder why people aren't as happy to see us show up. And Jack Kemp came along, and he basically asked the question I asked you earlier today. He said, What if we offered people a bigger economy, more jobs, a much larger civil sector, many more opportunities for people as individuals, as neighbors, as churches, as charities to go out and do better? And what if our commitment was a dynamic, growing America where everybody has a bigger piece of the pie? And I can tell you, from 1976 when I first met him, I was just talking to Larry Kudlow, who we'll talk in a little while, who also met Jack about at the same time. From 1976 to 1980, Kemp convinced me. And he went out to California in late 1979. He met with Ronald Reagan. And he said, I really believe this is the future. Reagan agreed. Kemp agreed to chair the Reagan campaign. And Reagan campaigned on what the old Republican Party thought was crazy. 3 years of tax cuts, fundamental deregulation, and optimism that we can just recreate a new dynamic America. And guess what? If you go back and when you see that chart on your home computer from newtuniversity.com, you'll find out the Reagan recovery. Reagan didn't run on re-election blaming Jimmy Carter. Reagan ran for re-election. The Reagan re-election slogan was leadership that is working. Can you imagine if Obama went around the country trying to explain that this was working? It's hopeless. That's why he has to run such a negative, mean, nasty campaign. And so I think it is tremendous to me personally to have Jimmy here carrying on as the president of the Jack Kemp Foundation. He gets it. He's going to share with us this whole notion of why a rising tide does in fact lift all boats, and why the party that offers more economic growth, more jobs, more opportunity, a better future is morally the right thing to do. It's historically the right thing to do, and it's also politically the right thing to do. And I hope you'll join me in really welcoming Jimmy Kemp and thanking him for being here with us.